It started like any other late afternoon at Westbridge High: gray skies, flickering hallway lights, and the kind of silence that makes you feel like the building is holding its breath. I was the last student in the AV room, putting the final touches on a video project I'd already put off for 2 weeks. The deadline was tomorrow, and my teacher, Mrs. Howell, had made it clear: turn it in or fail. So naturally, I waited until the last possible night to finish it. Outside, the sky was a thick smear of storm clouds. Thunder rolled in lazy, deep rumbles that shook the window panes. Rain was coming. I could smell it in the air, that wet concrete scent that always hit just before a downpour. I closed my laptop and stretched, the muscles in my back popping from sitting too long. The school was way too quiet now. I glanced at the wall clock. 5:47 p.m. Way past the time anyone should still be here. I packed my stuff, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and headed into the hallway. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like dying bees. Half of them were either flickering or completely out, leaving pockets of shadow along the corridor. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have. I passed the janitor near the science wing, old Mr. Burke. He was pushing his mop bucket, whistling off-key like usual. He didn't look up as I walked past, just mumbled something under his breath. "What was that?" I asked, stopping. He looked at me with tired, glassy eyes. "You should leave, Carl." I blinked. "Yeah, I am. Just finished up." He didn't reply, just stared at me like he wanted to say something else. Then he pushed his bucket down the hall and turned the corner. I stood there for a moment, feeling oddly, watched. Shaking it off, I made my way to the front doors. I pulled the handle. Nothing. I frowned and tugged harder. Locked. Okay, weird. I tried the other set of doors. Same thing. That's when the intercom crackled to life overhead, sharp and sudden like a slap. "Lockdown initiated. Remain inside. This is not a drill." The voice was mechanical, emotionless, the kind they use for emergency alerts. I stood frozen, staring up at the speaker like it would explain itself. My heart was suddenly beating too fast. What kind of drill starts after hours when no one's around? I pulled out my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. No messages. Just the time, 5:59 p.m. I tried calling Mom. The call failed. Thunder cracked outside, louder this time, and the building gave a low groan. The lights flickered again, then steadied. Okay, I told myself, stay calm. Probably some system glitch. I'd wait it out for a few minutes, then someone would come by to unlock the doors. Still, something in me was crawling, that quiet little voice that whispers when something isn't right. I turned to head back toward the main office to find a phone. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper, taped to the inside of my locker. I hadn't noticed it earlier, and I sure as hell didn't put it there. It was yellowed, stained at the edges, and scrawled in messy black ink. The title was written in huge capital letters. Rules for Surviving Westbridge After Dark. Below that, the first few lines were underlined in red. Do not respond to your name if you hear it whispered from behind. If the hallway clock strikes 13, run. Avoid room 302. It's already taken. I stared at the list. My heart, already uneasy, gave a sharp jolt. This had to be a joke. Some senior prank, maybe. Or one of those internet urban legend things people like to copy-paste for fun. Still, why did it have my name on it? Why was it taped to my locker? Another loud crack of thunder shook the walls. The lights dimmed for a moment, just long enough for the hallway to fall into near darkness. When they flickered back on, I could have sworn, just for a split second, there was something standing at the far end of the hallway. Something tall. Still. Watching. Then the lights blinked fully on again. And it was gone. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. My fingers tightened around the paper. I should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything other than stand there like an idiot. But instead, I read the list again. And for the first time in my life, I started to believe that the stories we whispered about this school might not have been stories at all. I was alone, and something was coming. The rules were real, and I had no idea how many of them I'd need before the night was over. The sound came out of nowhere. One moment I was alone in the AV room, editing clips for my media project, and the next, the school's old intercom crackled to life like a dying insect. The voice that followed was hollow and distorted, like it had been dragged through static and spat back out. Lockdown initiated. Remain inside. This is not a drill. I froze, staring at the speaker mounted above the door. For a second, I thought it might be a glitch. Sometimes the system hiccuped during testing. But then the lights flickered. All of them. Not just in the room, everywhere. I could see it through the narrow window in the door. Darkness rolled down the hallway in waves, interrupted only by the flickering red glow of the emergency exit signs. I grabbed my backpack and rushed to the door, yanking it open. The hall was dead silent. No voices. No footsteps. Just the soft, buzzing hum of backup power kicking in. I pulled out my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Even the weather app refused to load. It was like someone had thrown a sheet over the world. Okay. Deep breaths. I tried the front entrance first. Figured it was worth checking even if it felt too easy. I jogged through the main hallway, passing rows of lockers that seemed to stretch longer than usual. That might have just been my nerves, but everything felt off. Taller. Darker. Wrong. When I got to the front doors, I wasn't surprised to find them sealed shut. Not locked, sealed. Thick steel plates had slid down over the glass, like a bank vault. I'd never seen those before. The intercom crackled again. Do not attempt to leave the building. This is not a drill. This time, the voice didn't sound like anyone I recognized. It wasn't the principal or one of the office assistants. It sounded like it was trying to be human, but didn't quite get there. That was when I felt it. That cold pinch in my gut. The sense that I was being watched, even though I was alone. I backed away from the doors slowly. That's when I saw something taped to my locker. It hadn't been there earlier. I was sure of it. A single piece of paper, torn at the edges. The corners were curled like it had been stuffed into someone's pocket for too long. The title was written in thick, shaky black ink. Rules for Surviving Westbridge After Dark. I scanned the first few lines. Rule number 1. Do not respond to your name if it's called from behind you. Rule number 2. If the hallway clock strikes 13, run. Rule number 3. Avoid room 302. It's already taken. My eyes narrowed. This was a joke, right? Some senior prank or creepy scavenger hunt. But the paper was old. Too old. Yellowed and soft, like it had been passed around for years. There were smudges of something dark on the corner, maybe ink. Maybe something else. I almost crumpled it and tossed it into the trash, but I didn't. Something about the way the letters were written made my skin crawl, like they'd been scratched in a hurry. Desperate. I turned my head, half expecting someone to jump out and yell gotcha. But the hallway was still empty. And then, I heard it. My name. Carl. It was soft. Too soft. Like someone had whispered it right into my ear. I spun around, heart hammering. No one was there. Who's there? I called out, hating how my voice cracked. Silence. I waited a few seconds, still staring down the hallway. There was no way anyone could have disappeared that fast. The place was empty. But I knew I'd heard it. I looked back at the paper. Rule number 1. Do not respond to your name if it's called from behind you. I hadn't turned when I first heard it. Not right away. I'd turned a few seconds later. That counted, right? Right? The hallway lights flickered again, and one of them popped, raining sparks onto the tile floor. Okay. Enough. I stuffed the paper into my pocket and backed away from my locker, eyes scanning every shadow. The school didn't feel like my school anymore. It felt alive. Watching. Listening. And something in it had called my name. Not a drill. Not a prank. This was something else. I turned and walked quickly down the hall, careful not to run. Not yet, but ready. Because if this list was real, and I had the sinking feeling I was going to need every rule I could get. I stood in front of my locker, staring at the paper taped to it. It looked like it had been torn from a notebook, jagged edges, faded lines. The handwriting was rushed and uneven, like whoever wrote it was shaking. Or dying. It was titled, Rules for Surviving Westbridge After Dark. The first few rules were smudged but still readable. Do not respond to your name if called from behind. If the hallway clock strikes 13, run. Avoid room 302. It's already taken. I laughed at first. Not out loud, just a little scoff under my breath. Some kid must have thought it'd be funny to scare people. Typical. This school had always been full of weird rumors. Haunted lockers. Crying heard in the walls. A shadow in the basement that never left. None of it ever seemed real. But then rule number 1. I felt something shift behind me. The hallway was empty. I had checked a dozen times. Just lockers, peeling paint, and that faint buzzing from the flickering overhead lights. I turned back to the list. More rules were scribbled underneath, in different ink. Don't go near the music room after midnight. If you see your reflection move differently, do not blink. The janitor isn't the janitor. That one made me pause. I remembered the janitor I saw earlier. He didn't say anything, just stared at me before walking into the east wing. His eyes had looked strange, like they were too dark, too deep. I shook the thought off. Just paranoia. Then I heard it. Carl. My name. Whispered softly. Too soft for any teacher. Too close for comfort. I froze. Every part of me went stiff like my body suddenly knew what my brain refused to believe. The voice came from behind me, just a few feet away. I didn't move. I didn't turn. I remembered rule number 1. Carl, please help me. It sounded like a girl. Familiar. Maybe Lila from English class. Or someone trying very hard to sound like her. The voice had a soft edge to it, but it was off somehow, too calm, too controlled. Like it wasn't real. Turn around. I can't move. I'm hurt. I stared straight ahead. My hands were sweating. My breathing grew loud in the silence. Something inside me screamed to run, to sprint the hell out of there. But something else told me that if I moved or turned around, I wouldn't like what I saw. The voice got closer. Not louder, just closer. Like it was moving toward me without footsteps. Carl, don't you remember me? I clenched my fists. Counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. And then it stopped. The air suddenly felt lighter, like pressure being released from a balloon. Whatever it was gone. I turned around slowly. Nothing. Just lockers and dim hallway lights. But my locker door, which had been shut, was now hanging open. The rule list was gone. I stepped back, breathing hard. Something was watching me. I couldn't see it. But I knew it was there. I checked the hallway clock near the cafeteria. 11:53 p.m. 7 minutes until midnight. And the music room was just down the hall. This was no prank. The rules were real. And someone, or something, wanted me to break them. I was halfway down the second floor hallway when the air changed. It wasn't just the silence. I'd gotten used to that by now, the hum of the lights, the faint creak of the building settling. But this was different. It was like the school itself was holding its breath, watching me. I stopped walking. Ahead of me, the hall stretched longer than it should. Westbridge wasn't a big school. I knew every corner, every creaky tile. But now the corridor seemed to stretch and twist slightly, like a bad dream trying to pretend it was real life. That's when I saw it. Room 302. It shouldn't have been there. Not on this side of the building. That room was in the old wing, the one sealed off after the ceiling collapsed years ago. Yet here it was, door cracked open, lights off, a faint flicker of something moving inside. I felt a cold tug in my gut. I pulled the rules list from my back pocket. The paper was damp from my sweat, smudged from how often I'd unfolded it. My eyes scanned down until I found it again. Rule number 3, avoid room 302. It's already taken. My hand trembled. I didn't know what taken meant, and I didn't want to find out. I was going to walk past it, quickly, quietly, without looking in. That was the plan. But as I started moving again, my foot slipped. I looked down. A dark smear stretched across the floor. Red. Wet. Blood. I froze. It trailed from the middle of the hall, all the way to the crack beneath room 302's door. I stared at it, heart pounding. The fluorescent lights above flickered once, then steadied. The hum returned, louder than before, like the school was trying to fill the silence with white noise. I crouched low, reached out, and gently touched the smear with the tip of my finger. Still warm. I wiped it on my jeans and backed up slowly, eyes fixed on the door. Something was behind it. I didn't hear breathing, footsteps, nothing. Just the slow, steady sound of something wet dripping. Tap, tap, tap. I turned to leave. The lights buzzed again. Every bulb in the hallway blinked at once, and in that flash of darkness, the door to room 302 opened wider with a groaning creak. No wind. No hands. Just opened. A low voice whispered my name. Carl. It was soft, almost kind. I'd know that voice anywhere. My dad. I froze. He's been dead for years. Vanished without a trace. They said he walked into the woods and never came back. But that voice, I swear to God, it was his. Carl, come here, buddy. I took a step forward, then another. The smell hit me metallic, like rust and old water. My mouth went dry. My dad used to call me Buddy when he was tucking me in at night. He used to read to me until I fell asleep. Carl. No. I stopped myself. Rule number 1. Do not respond to your name if called from behind. This wasn't from behind, but the same principle had to apply, right? Something was using his voice. Something that wasn't him. I clenched my fists, took a breath, and backed away. Carl, don't leave me, the voice pleaded, cracking a little. It sounded like he was crying. I kept walking. Faster now. Behind me, the door slammed shut with a violent bang that echoed down the hall like a gunshot. Then silence. I turned a corner, heart racing, and leaned against a locker to steady myself. From my pocket, I felt the list warm against my leg. I pulled it out. Another line had appeared. Rule number 19. If room 302 speaks, don't answer. It remembers your voice. My hands shook as I read it. That room, whatever it was, it had heard me. It had mimicked my father. It knew how to get to me. I folded the list carefully and shoved it back into my pocket. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. This place wanted me to stay, and it was willing to use anything, anyone, to make that happen. I thought I was starting to get the hang of the rules. Don't answer voices. Don't look into dark rooms for too long. Don't go near room 302. Simple in theory. But it turns out, surviving Westbridge High after dark wasn't just about following instructions. It was about surviving the unexpected. And nothing about what happened next was in the rules. I was standing at the far end of the east hallway, the one lined with trophy cases and faded class photos. The emergency lights flickered overhead, giving everything a sickly red glow. My shoes squeaked against the linoleum floor, and every step echoed louder than it should have. That's when I heard it. The clock. Ding. The sound came from the old mechanical wall clock above the exit doors. Except, it was chiming. It shouldn't have been. That clock never worked. It was always stuck at 11:42. I'd stared at it enough during detention to know. Ding. The clock hands moved now, slowly ticking past midnight. But that wasn't the weird part. It chimed again. Ding. A third time. That's when something in my chest twisted. I remembered rule number 2 from the list. If the hallway clock strikes 13, run. I counted each chime. My hands were shaking now. 4, 5, 6. My breath caught in my throat. 7, 8, 9. It couldn't be real. The sound was deep, too deep, like it came from inside my head. 10, 11, 12. I didn't wait for the 13th. I ran. My body moved before my brain could. I bolted down the hallway, sneakers slapping the floor, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. Behind me, the final chime echoed through the school like a warning. 13. And then the hallway changed. The red lights blinked out, leaving everything in blackness for half a second, long enough for panic to grab hold of me. When the lights came back on, the hallway was longer. No wrong. The photos on the walls were gone. The trophy cases were shattered. The lockers were dented and rusted, like they'd been sitting in some forgotten basement for decades. And worst of all, I wasn't alone. Someone stood at the end of the corridor. Tall. Still. Facing me. I stopped running. Jacob? I whispered, even though I didn't mean to. The figure tilted its head. That was a mistake. It wasn't Jacob. It stepped into the light. Its skin was pale, paper white, and its eyes were pitch black, like empty sockets. But it wore a Westbridge Letterman jacket. I recognized it. It was the one Jacob used to wear. The thing took a step toward me. I ran again, turning the first corner I saw. The layout was unfamiliar now, like the school had rearranged itself behind my back. My breath came in short gasps. My legs burned. I didn't stop until I found a supply closet and dove inside, slamming the door behind me. Silence. I crouched in the dark, the only sound my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I didn't know how long I stayed there. A minute? 10? Maybe more. Eventually, I pulled out the folded list of rules from my pocket. The paper was wet with sweat and nearly torn down the middle. But something was different. There was a new rule at the bottom, written in jagged handwriting I didn't recognize. Rule number 11, the clock doesn't lie. The hallway does. I stared at the words, trying to make sense of them. Then, from just outside the closet, I heard someone whisper, "Carl, where did you go?" The voice sounded like Jacob. But I knew better now. I didn't answer. I held my breath. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. This place wasn't just trying to trap me. It was trying to replace me. The hallway was darker than it should have been. The emergency lights were on, but they only flickered weakly, throwing broken shadows across the walls. Every step I took echoed too loudly, like the school itself was listening. I clutched the wrinkled rule list in my hand, my knuckles white. Something had changed. The silence wasn't just silence anymore. It was full, like it was waiting for me. I turned the corner near the science wing, and then I froze. There was someone standing in the hallway. A figure at the far end, half in shadow. He wasn't moving. Just watching. My heart slammed against my ribs. For a second, I thought it might be a teacher. Maybe help. Maybe someone else trapped here like me. But the way he stood, still and straight and quiet, it was wrong. Like a painting pretending to be a person. I took a cautious step forward, squinting through the dim light. That's when I saw his face. I stopped breathing. Jacob. My best friend. My ex-best friend, technically. He had disappeared 6 months ago. One day, he just stopped showing up to school. The rumors were wild. Some said he had a breakdown, some said he ran away. A few whispered he went into the woods behind the school and never came out. I'd searched for him. For weeks. And then I gave up. But here he was. He smiled at me. It was slow. Too wide. His teeth gleamed faintly. "Hey Carl," he said, voice calm and steady, like we were meeting at the lockers again before lunch. I didn't speak. Couldn't. He stepped closer. I backed away. "You're still here," Jacob said. "I was wondering how long it'd take you to find me." What is this?" I asked, my throat dry. "Where have you been?" He tilted his head like a curious animal. His eyes didn't blink. "Downstairs," he said. "Where the school keeps the broken things. Where they keep the things that remember." My skin went cold. "You're not real," I said, more to myself than to him. "You can't be real." Jacob laughed softly. "That's what I told myself too, the first few nights. But you'll learn. They all do. Eventually." "What do you want?" I asked. His smile dropped. His voice got lower. "I want to finish what we started." "What are you talking about?" He walked toward me again, and this time I didn't move. I was frozen in place. "Don't you remember?" he said. "The basement. The radio. The chanting. We joked about it like it was a game. But you left. You walked away. And I stayed." My mind raced. We had snuck into the school basement once, back in sophomore year. Found an old broadcast room with ancient equipment. We messed around with switches and static. Jacob found a journal in a locked drawer full of strange phrases. He wanted to read them out loud, like some kind of ritual. I didn't take it seriously. I told him he was being stupid, and left him down there. I hadn't thought about that night in years. "You finished the ritual," I whispered. Jacob nodded slowly. "And now I can't leave," he said. "Not until someone takes my place." His eyes were darker now. Not just the pupils, his whole eyes. "I don't want this anymore, Carl. I really don't. But I can't leave the school until the balance is kept." A horrible thought bloomed in my mind. "You want me to stay?" He smiled again, but there was pain behind it this time. "Someone has to feed it. The school. The thing below. The rules aren't to protect you. They're to guide you into the right place, at the right time." I backed up, heart racing. "I won't do it," I said. "I didn't think you would, yet." Then, just like that, he turned and walked away, straight through a locked metal door that hissed open on its own and slammed shut behind him. I was alone again. But now I knew, Jacob hadn't just vanished. He'd become part of something bigger. Something ancient and hungry. And now it wanted me too. I never thought a school could hold so many secrets, but Westbridge High was proving me wrong at every turn. After my run-in with Jacob, I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed answers, and somehow, I knew the truth was buried deep in this building. I wandered through the dim hallways, my footsteps echoing off cracked lockers and peeling paint. The emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows that seemed to twitch and shift just out of sight. My heart thudded, but I pushed the fear down. I had to be smarter than this place. That's when I noticed it, a faint draft coming from behind one of the old bulletin boards near the stairwell. The board was crooked, as if it hadn't been touched for decades. I pulled at the edges, fingers trembling, and the whole thing swung forward, revealing a narrow gap in the wall. A hidden door. I hesitated. This had to be some kind of secret passage, maybe a way teachers used to sneak around, or a forgotten emergency exit. But something about the air coming from that crack was colder, heavier. It smelled like dust and old wood mixed with something metallic, like blood. I pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, complaining after years of silence. A steep staircase plunged down into darkness. I shined my flashlight inside, but the beam only caught the first few steps before vanishing into blackness. I took a deep breath and stepped down. The stairs groaned beneath me, and the air grew colder with every step. My skin prickled, and I felt like I was being watched, but I kept going. At the bottom, the narrow corridor stretched ahead, damp and lined with rusted pipes. The walls here were covered with strange symbols, scratches, almost like someone had clawed at the paint. I moved forward carefully, eyes darting over every inch. Then I saw it, a metal door, old and rusted shut, with a small window covered in grime. Behind the glass, I caught a glimpse of scattered papers, old files stacked in piles. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I ran my fingers along the frame, feeling the cold metal hum faintly beneath my touch. My flashlight flickered. When it steadied, I noticed something taped to the door, a faded, yellowed sheet with typed words. Project Echo Confidential. I pressed my ear to the door and listened. Nothing but silence, and the distant drip of water somewhere in the shadows. I pulled out my phone and tapped the flashlight again, then spotted a small panel beside the door with a keypad. The numbers were worn down, but the digits 1, 3, and 7 stood out as if they'd been pressed recently. I punched in 137, hoping for a miracle. The keypad beeped, and the lock clicked. The door swung open with a long, haunted sigh. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of something rotten. Rows of filing cabinets stood against the walls, papers scattered across the floor like ghosts frozen in time. I stepped inside and my light caught the label on a thick folder. Jacob Granger, Psychological Evaluation. My heart sank. I flipped it open and scanned the pages. Reports, notes, and disturbing entries describing hallucinations, paranoia, and ritualistic behavior. Then I found a USB drive taped to the bottom. I stuffed it in my pocket without hesitation. On a nearby desk, a dusty laptop flickered to life when I tapped the power button, as if it had been waiting for me. A single video file stared back at me. I pressed play. Jacob's face appeared, pale and gaunt. His eyes were wild but desperate. "If you're watching this," he said, voice shaky, "it means it's happening again. The rules, they're real. The school, it's alive. You have to stop it, or you'll be next." The video cut to static, then ended. I swallowed hard. I wasn't alone in this nightmare. Jacob had been trapped here before me, and he knew more than I ever could. The entity feeding on this place had been waiting, watching. And somehow it had taken Jacob, turned him into something else. I folded the folder, grabbed the USB, and headed back toward the stairs. But as I climbed, the walls seemed to close in, whispers curling around me like smoke. And I knew this was only the beginning. The deeper I went into the school, the harder it became to trust what I was seeing, or even what I was thinking. It was like the walls themselves were playing tricks on me, twisting time and space until I wasn't sure if I was awake or trapped in some terrible dream. I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror on the second floor, the one near the old science wing. The lights above flickered erratically, casting shadows that danced and stretched like living things. I leaned closer, wiping the condensation off the glass with the sleeve of my jacket. For a second, I thought I saw something move behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dull buzz of the fluorescent bulbs and the cold, stale air. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was wrong. It hesitated. It blinked slower than I did. Then it smiled. Not me. Something else. My heart slammed against my ribs, pounding like a warning drum. I clenched my fists and stared harder. The smile faded. The reflection snapped back to normal, copying my every breath and twitch as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. Something was wrong. I took a step back, shaking my head like it would clear the fog in my brain. But the school wasn't done messing with me. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. I pulled it out and saw a new message flashing on the screen. No contact name, just those words. "Do not trust yourself after 2 a.m. I swallowed hard. My watch showed 1:47 a.m. That left less than 15 minutes before whatever this warning meant would kick in. Was my reflection a warning? Or a threat? I slipped the phone back into my pocket and moved on, but my eyes kept darting back to any reflective surface, windows, polished floors, even the shiny metal lockers. I caught myself talking out loud to my reflection, trying to reason with it, to find some anchor in this madness. "Carl, you're not crazy," I whispered. "It's this place. It's messing with my head." But the silence that followed felt like a challenge, like the school wanted me to prove otherwise. As I walked, I noticed the list of rules in my hand was changing again. The ink was fresh, dark red, and shaky, as if someone had written it with trembling fingers. Rule 12. Do not trust your reflection after 2 a.m. Rule 13. Shadows do not belong to you. Rule 14. Never close your eyes in the halls. I shoved the paper into my jacket pocket and took a deep breath. I had never believed in ghosts or curses, not really. But this night was breaking every rule I had about reality. The school had become a trap, a maze of fear, and I was its prisoner. And now, my own reflection might be the key to my escape, or my end. I had been wandering the halls for what felt like hours, the eerie silence pressing down on me like a weight. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every distant creak made my heart race. The rule list was growing, scribbled in strange handwriting now, as if someone else was writing it, someone watching me. I kept telling myself to stay calm, but calm was a lie when the walls around me shifted like a living thing. When I reached the library, the door was slightly ajar. I'd never seen it open this late. Usually, it was locked tight after hours. Something made me push it open, even though a small voice screamed inside my head not to. The smell of old books hit me first, musty and dry, a strange comfort in the chaos. The room was dim, lit only by the moonlight filtering through tall windows. Rows of bookshelves stood like silent sentinels, but it was the figure sitting cross-legged on the floor near the back that caught my attention. She looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide and scared, but also determined. A girl, maybe a year or two younger than me, with tangled hair and a hoodie several sizes too big. She hugged a tattered book to her chest like a shield. "Hey," I said, trying to sound steady. "Are you okay?" She blinked, then nodded slowly. "I'm Lila," she said in a quiet voice. "I got stuck here just like you." For a moment, I just stared. Another trapped kid? I wanted to believe it was a relief, but something about her was different. Like she knew more than she let on. "What do you know about this place?" I asked, sitting down a few feet away, careful to keep some distance. She pulled the book tighter. "I've been reading about the rules." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "They keep changing. If you don't follow them, you don't last long." I nodded, feeling the same cold knot in my stomach. "Yeah, I found a list taped to my locker. But these rules, they feel alive, like they're watching." Lila's eyes darted toward the windows. "Sometimes I hear things. Voices calling my name, footsteps that aren't mine." She swallowed hard. "The worst part? The mimic." My breath caught. I'd heard rumors from whispers in the halls about a creature that pretends to be someone you trust. "The mimic?" I repeated. She nodded. "It looks like people, you know. It copies their voice. If it gets close, it kills you." Her voice cracked a little. The thought made my skin crawl. But for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone. "We need to stick together," I said firmly. "Two heads are better than one, right?" Lila smiled weakly, then nodded. "Yeah, together." We sat there for a moment, two strangers bound by fear and the need to survive. The library, with its quiet rows of forgotten stories, became our refuge. But even here, the shadows felt restless, like the school itself was waiting for us to make a mistake. I glanced down at the growing list of rules in my hand. The words looked less like warnings now, and more like a twisted guidebook for whatever nightmare we were caught in. "We have to figure out what this place really wants," I said quietly. Lila's gaze hardened. And fast, because the night was far from over, and whatever hunted us wasn't done yet. The gym smelled like old sweat and dusty memories. I never liked this place. Too many echoes bouncing off the walls, too many shadows hiding in the corners. Tonight, it felt different, like the building itself was watching me. Lila walked beside me, clutching her backpack tight. She looked scared, but she nodded when I asked if she was ready. We had no choice. The rules said the exit wasn't where I thought it was, and we had to find it before whatever was hunting us found us first. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing in a way that made my skin crawl. We stepped onto the cracked wooden floor, the faded lines of the basketball court barely visible beneath layers of grime. Our footsteps sounded too loud in the silence, bouncing back at us like ghosts. "Do you think it's here?" Lila whispered, voice trembling. I swallowed hard. "It has to be somewhere around here." Suddenly, a soft voice called my name from across the room. "Carl." It was sweet, familiar. Too familiar. I spun around, heart pounding in my chest. Lila gasped. Standing near the bleachers was Mr. Baxter, my old history teacher. Or at least, it looked like him. His smile was warm, eyes bright, just like I remembered. But something about his stance was wrong, too stiff, too perfect. "Mr. Baxter?" I said, stepping closer. "What are you doing here?" He waved me over, beckoning like nothing was wrong. "Come on, Carl. You're safe here. Just come sit with me." Lila grabbed my arm. "Don't go. It's not him." I hesitated. The way he spoke, the way he smiled, it pulled at me like a desperate promise of safety. But something deep inside my gut screamed no. I shook my head and took a step back. The smile flickered, and his face twisted, like a mask slipping. Suddenly, his eyes went black, empty like deep wells. his mouth stretched into a cruel grin, sharp teeth glinting under the flickering lights. It wasn't Mr. Baxter. It was the mimic. My breath caught. The mimic was one of the worst things on the list, a creature that copied people you trusted, trying to lure you into a trap. Come closer, it hissed, voice low and cold. Lila pulled me toward the exit, but the gym doors slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The fluorescent lights died all at once, plunging us into thick darkness. I heard the creature's footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, matching mine perfectly. "Carl," it whispered, voice a chilling echo of my own. Panic surged through me. I fumbled in the dark for my phone. The flashlight cut a narrow beam through the black, trembling as my hands shook. I glanced behind. The mimic was close, shifting its shape, flickering between Mr. Baxter's face and something else, something monstrous. I ran. My feet pounded against the wood, heart hammering. I darted between the bleachers, the mimic just a breath behind. "Stop running," it growled, voice dripping with malice. I spotted the emergency exit sign glowing faintly near the far wall. That had to be our way out. But the mimic blocked the path, tall and wide, its form changing again, now a twisted, grotesque version of Jacob's smiling face. Lila shouted, "Carl, use the rules." Rules. I scrambled for the crumpled paper in my pocket, feeling damp with sweat. Rule number 15? Something about the mimic. Don't look it in the eyes. It feeds off your fear. I forced myself to look away, focusing on the glowing exit sign instead. With a burst of courage, I dashed to the door and slammed my hand on the handle. It was locked. "No," I whispered. The mimic lunged. I dove to the side just in time, scraping my knee. Lila grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the corner where a fire extinguisher hung. "Use this," she hissed. I grabbed it, heart thundering. When the mimic lunged again, I sprayed the extinguisher into its face. The cold foam hissed and smoke curled around it. It screamed, a sound like glass breaking and bones snapping. The creature staggered, and I kicked it hard in the ribs. Lila yanked open a side door leading to the hallway. "We need to move now," she urged. We bolted out of the gym, breathless and shaking. Once in the hallway, I collapsed against the wall, clutching the extinguisher like a lifeline. "That was too close," I said, voice rough. Lila nodded. "It's getting smarter. And it's hunting us." I stared at the gym doors behind us, silent and still again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. This nightmare was far from over. The air in the hallway felt thicker than before, heavy with something I couldn't name. It was like the shadows themselves were breathing, slow, deliberate, watching me. Every step I took echoed louder, but it wasn't just my footsteps anymore. There was something else. Something following. I tightened my grip on the list of rules in my hand. The paper was starting to tear at the edges, smeared with dirt and a strange sticky residue I didn't want to identify. The rules seemed to pulse with a life of their own, as if they were warning me, or maybe daring me to keep going. I wasn't alone. I could feel it. Lila had been by my side, her pale face streaked with tears and sweat. We had made it this far, dodging shadows and whispering voices, holding on to the fragile hope that we could escape this nightmare. But hope was a dangerous thing in Westbridge High. We slipped into a side corridor, hoping it would lead to the exit. The flickering lights above barely held back the darkness. Suddenly the temperature dropped, a cold wave that froze the blood in my veins. I could hear her before I saw her, a soft voice, barely a whisper, calling my name. Then I saw him. Or rather, the thing wearing his face. The figure stepped out of the darkness, tall and silent, but with eyes that burned with an unnatural glow. The face was familiar, my father's. Or at least, a twisted echo of him. The same tired eyes, the same hollow smile, but something was horribly wrong. The skin was stretched too tight, the grin too wide. "Carl," the figure said, voice like a cracked record, distorted and cold. "Dad," I whispered, my throat closing up. "Is that really you?" The thing tilted its head like it was mocking me. "Come with me, Carl. It's time to finish what he started." Lila grabbed my arm, her grip trembling. "Don't trust it. It's not him." But I was frozen, caught between disbelief and dread. The figure reached out a hand, cold as ice, and before I could react, Lila was gone. Pulled into the darkness in a flash, her scream swallowed by the walls. "No!" I shouted, lunging forward, but there was nothing to grab. Only silence. The hallway twisted around me, the walls bending and folding like paper. The floor beneath my feet shifted, tilting, making me stumble. Time itself seemed to warp. The clocks on the walls spun backward, their hands blurring into one another. I was alone. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stumbled through the distorted corridors. The rules were fading, the ink running like tears on the page. I was losing my grip on everything, my hope, my sanity, my reality. And then, in the quiet between heartbeats, I heard it. A soft humming. The same lullaby my father used to sing. The song twisted in the darkness, pulling me deeper into the nightmare. I never thought I'd find the truth buried in the dead silence of this place, but here I was, standing in a dusty, forgotten office deep beneath the school. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of mildew and old paper, the only sound my shallow breaths and the faint drip of water somewhere far off. My flashlight flickered weakly as I scanned the walls, lined with yellowing files and peeling posters from decades ago. Then I saw it, the file labeled Project Echo. The letters were faded, but the words hit me like a punch. I pulled it down carefully, my hands trembling slightly. The folder was stuffed with documents, photographs, and tape recordings. The tape was old, the kind that needs a player I wasn't sure even existed anymore, but I found one hidden in a drawer. I pressed play, and a crackling voice filled the room. This is the final warning. Project Echo must not continue. The experiment opened a door we never should have touched. The voice was shaky, like it belonged to someone who had seen too much darkness. I swallowed hard and dug deeper into the files. The project was a government attempt to tap into human consciousness, using the school as a testing ground. Kids like Jacob were part of it, pushed to the brink and beyond. The experiments messed with time, memory, reality itself. It was why the school twisted the way it did after dark, why time folded in on itself like a broken mirror. And then the worst part. There was a photo of my dad. His face was tired but determined. A note scribbled on the back said, "Trapped trying to seal the breach. Last known location, room 302. My breath caught. I'd spent years thinking he'd just left us, or worse. But this meant he was part of it all. He'd been trying to stop this nightmare, just like I was now. My heart pounded, pounding in my ears louder than anything else. I had to see room 302 for myself. If my dad had gone there to fight whatever this thing was, then maybe I could finish what he started. I shoved the files into my bag and headed for the stairs, every step echoing in the dark hallways that seemed to breathe around me. The walls flickered like shadows dancing just beyond the light's reach. As I got closer to room 302, the air grew colder, thick with a silent pressure that pressed against my chest. The door was different from the others, solid steel, no windows, no handles. I pressed my hand against it, feeling the faint vibration underneath, like something alive was waiting on the other side. I whispered, "Dad, if you're here, show me a way." For a moment, nothing. Then a faint pulse in the wall, like a heartbeat answering mine. This was it, the heart of the school's darkness. I steeled myself. Whatever waited behind that door was the key to all of this. To Jacob, to the rules, to my dad's fate, and maybe to my own survival. Taking a deep breath, I reached for the lock. The air in the hallway was thick and cold, like the school itself was holding its breath. I moved slowly, my footsteps barely making a sound on the cracked linoleum. The lights flickered above me, casting long shadows that twisted and stretched in impossible ways. Somewhere deep inside the school, I could hear a low hum, steady, like the pulse of a heartbeat. Then he appeared. Jacob. He stood at the end of the corridor, leaning casually against the chipped wall, as if this nightmare were just another late-night hangout. His eyes met mine, cold and distant, but there was something else buried in them, a strange kind of calm. He smiled, but it wasn't the smile of the boy I once knew. This was different. Empty. Like a mask. "I knew you'd come," he said softly. His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. "You always do." I wanted to hate him, to scream and run, but my feet stayed rooted to the spot. Part of me was afraid, but another part was curious. Maybe it was the same part that wanted answers, answers I'd chased for so long in these halls. "What do you want, Jacob?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He pushed off the wall and stepped closer. His movements were slow, deliberate. "I'm here to offer you a choice. The same choice I was given." The words made my stomach drop. I swallowed hard. "What choice?" He looked at me like I was the only person left in the world. "You can take my place. Become the warden. Keep the cycle going." I frowned, confused. "Warden? What does that even mean?" Jacob's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It means power. Control. You would protect the school, keep the darkness contained. No one else would get hurt. But at what cost?" I asked, shaking my head. "You're not the same. You're broken." He laughed, but it was hollow. "Broken? Maybe. But alive. Safer than the alternative. He stepped closer still, and I could see the faint bruises forming under his pale skin. The dark circles beneath his eyes told a story I didn't want to hear. I was weak once, he said. I fought it. But the school, it changes you. You can fight it too. Or you can accept. I looked away, the weight of his offer pressing down on me. I thought about Lila, about everyone lost here. About the endless nights trapped in this place that never let go. I thought about my dad, about what he had tried to stop. No, I said firmly. I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to let this thing win. Jacob's face hardened, and for a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, the friend I'd lost. Then you leave me no choice. The shadows around him began to ripple, darkening like ink spilled on water. The air grew colder, sharper, and the hum inside the walls turned into a low growl. I clenched my fists and took a step back, ready for whatever came next. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I pushed open the heavy metal door of room 302, the last place I wanted to be, but somehow the only place I could go. The air inside was thick, like something was breathing in the dark with me. My flashlight barely cut through the shadows, but I didn't want to look away. The room was nothing like a classroom anymore. The desks were overturned, walls scratched with strange symbols I didn't recognize. In the center, a strange pulsing light throbbed, almost like a heartbeat made of shadows. It wasn't just light, it felt alive. The pulsing grew faster as I stepped closer. My heart pounded, but I kept moving forward. The school had been feeding this thing for decades, sucking fear and memories into it like fuel. It was the darkness behind everything, the reason for the rules, for Jacob, for all the lost students. I could hear it whispering, voices twisting together into a terrible song I almost understood. It called my name. I swallowed hard and ignored it. Jacob's voice echoed in my head, reminding me of the deal, the promise of safety if I joined him. But I refused. I reached the old science lab entrance next to room 302. The rusty pipes smelled like gas. My fingers trembled as I pulled the valve, letting the liquid hiss into the room, filling it slowly. This was my trap. The pulsing light flared as the creature sensed danger. The shadows twisted into shapes, faces, hands, bodies, all reaching out. I lit a match with shaking hands and threw it into the room. The flames roared to life, swallowing the darkness. Heat slammed into me, but I didn't move. The thing screamed, a sound like 1,000 broken voices all crying out at once. Then silence. I stumbled back through the hallway, the walls crumbling around me. Outside, the first rays of dawn cut through the smoke. I gasped for air, the cool morning breeze hitting my face like a promise. I was free, or at least I thought I was. But when I checked my phone, a message blinked on the screen. New rules. New dangers. The fight wasn't over. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the school hadn't finished with me yet. I woke up gasping, my clothes soaked in cold sweat. The sun was already high, but something felt wrong. The world outside looked the same, cracked sidewalks, rusty streetlights, and that endless gray sky. But inside me, a chill was crawling up my spine, whispering that I hadn't escaped after all. My phone buzzed sharply against the cracked pavement where I'd dropped it. I bent down and grabbed it, heart hammering. The screen lit up with a message I wasn't ready to see. New rules. You're not out yet. I stared at the words. No sender. No explanation. Just those 3 lines, heavy and cold. I wanted to throw the phone away, to scream at the sky, to run until my lungs burned. But my feet wouldn't move. I was rooted in place, as if the school itself was still holding me tight, even in the daylight. The reflection in a nearby puddle caught my eye. I froze. For a moment, it didn't look like me. The face staring back was thinner, paler, with eyes that didn't quite belong. Then the puddle rippled, and the face snapped back to normal. That was when I realized the school wasn't done with me. This was no ending. It was a new beginning, or maybe a trap. I thought about Lila, about Jacob, about the rules that had saved me and the ones that had betrayed me. What else was waiting in the shadows? How many nights like this would I have to survive? The message blinked on the screen again. New rules. I didn't know if I was terrified or curious anymore. Maybe both. I slid the phone into my pocket and started walking. Because the night was coming. And with it, a new game,